Hey, what's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. Subscribe to Saturday Down South on YouTube. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, you were in Athens this weekend. Kind of a last minute thing for you to be able to go with our guy Perry to Texas, Georgia, see the lads, Emery, Michael Darr. Shout out to those guys who have been listening to us for a really long time. How was your time up in Athens on Saturday?
Man, Athens game day was amazing. You can hear my voice is a little bit raspy. It's nothing compared to one of the LSU Bama games or anything, but yeah, it was a great time, man. And I feel like truly, I've been all over the SEC, but it's almost like nobody told Athens that we moved on to this like new like NFL era of college football because you walk around there and it feels like a college town. It feels like they're kind of doing it the right way, and people can talk about all this different stuff, stadium atmosphere, like whatever. But I think like start to finish for a neutral fan to enjoy a game day, there might not be a better place than Athens, man. And that crew is just second to none that I went with.
If someone tells me that Athens is the best college town in America, I'm not going to argue with them. I won't. I refuse. Long overdue to get back. I haven't been back since 21. Yeah, I haven't been back since 21, since championship parade after that. So very jealous, lived vicariously through. You did a thing that I wonder how many people listening to this do. And by the way, we've got a lot to get to with all things week 12. Very interesting week in the SEC, wherein there were 3 games decided by 2 points or fewer. Third day in SEC history for that per SEC final. And it was a lot of like kind of close games late and significant takeaways that we're going to get to here. But you did something that I applaud you for. You are not by nature a Georgia fan, but when in Rome, not Rome, Georgia, but Athens, you wore a Georgia jersey to the tailgate, to the game. You were not going to like wear an LSU jersey, which is the lamest thing you can possibly do. You didn't even wear neutral clothes, which admittedly is the thing that I would do. And I do that because I'm a big J. But
Big J Journo right here. You got to go with a shade of gray at all times, just in case.
Yeah, just want to make sure that all parties involved. I don't want to have that come back to bite me if people are like, "Oh, look at you, you're discussing all things." But I applaud what you did because you leaned into it. You embraced your surroundings. You are not a hater. Did you have any sort of resistance to throw on a Georgia jersey, knowing that you are, fair weather fan for the day in a sense, and you're around Georgia fans? Like, what was the thought process that went into that? Because I think that's a thing that a lot of people would resist in your spot.
I mean, I'll say this, like it is really a win in Rome thing. And maybe that comes from like being in social or working in the industry a little bit, but it's a little bit lame to me when people like we'll be talking about some player or something and somebody will be like, well, as a Northwestern fan, I think X, Y, and Z. And it's like, hey man, like you don't always have to bring your fandom into everything. And I feel like if I would wear an LSU jersey to, and my friends are, covering the tickets and I'm going to their tailgate and all that. And it's like every conversation I would have would be like, well, yeah, but as an LSU fan, I support you guys. And it's like, well, that just feels whack if I'm going to enjoy all the spoils of Georgia football. And like, granted, don't get me wrong, they're like Georgia's a neutral team to me that has been really good to me. I live in Atlanta. Maybe I would feel a little bit different if we were in, Bryant Denny or something, and some others like, throw up a roll tide. Like that feels weird coming out of my mouth. But there's only a couple of schools like that where I would be like, I'd feel weird because at the end of the day, it's ultimately college athletics. It's ultimately about alumni and tailgates and hanging out with your boys. And like I feel like sometimes we get so far away from that when we get online and get the vitriol going. It's like it's just a good time with the lads, no hate there.
Did it help at all that your team, as Claire makes her presence felt in the background, apologies for that, did it help at all that your team is already mathematically out of it?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the best part of as an LSU fan, because you can speak totally non-biased. You'd be like, hey guys, hey, check out this weird little fake play LSU's running here. It's like there's no like tension, there's no like us vying for a playoff spot. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's like, being this is gonna sound kind of whack, but it's like cosplaying as a winner for a day when your team is out. It's kind of nice. It's like, hey, throw up that number one and you got a shot at it.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. All right, before we get to everything, today's pod brought to you by Dabble. I've been talking about Dabble for a really long time. It is one of the newest and best apps in the daily fantasy space. They've wasted no time making a name for themselves. The social function, it is second to none. They offer a wide variety of sports making picks, college, NFL, NBA, you name it, they got it. Use promo code SDS2 when you sign up today. Receive $25 in bonus cash. No deposit required. Again, that is promo code SDS2 for $25 in bonus cash, courtesy of the good folks at Dabble. All right, Will. We're actually not going to start with the game that you were at, because there was a better game involving two playoff contending teams in the SEC with Oklahoma and Alabama. Havoc. Havoc.
Havoc. You know what is so crazy, man? Yeah, I called that one wrong, but the impetus was right? And in watching SEC final, they literally talked about how in the first half, Ty Simpson was poised because like the Brent Venables defense was kind of sitting back a little bit more. Yeah, they had the turnover, but they were sitting back. And then in the second half, they started bringing the blitz in the same way that LSU did. And in my mind, I hate to say it, but I was a little bit more believing of Ty Simpson. I thought that against the blitz, Ty Simpson would be able to dissect a defense like that.
Nope.
And kind of just like against LSU, he started to crumble a little bit under that pressure.
He really did. And Oklahoma wins this one in Tuscaloosa, 23-21. First time an SEC team has gone into Bryant-Denny and won since 2019 LSU. I can't bring up that stat anymore when we do our preview pods. First time that Kalen DeBoer has lost a home game of any kind since he was Fresno State's head coach in 2021, which is baffling to think about. First time that Kalen DeBoer has lost a regular season game with the black Bama hoodie. So
Nuts. I mean, so many things you would think would be going Bama's way in this game. The fact that Oklahoma had such a low offensive total, they didn't exactly play their game either, but we see the same team in the Tennessee win on the road and in the Bama win, which is that we are just going to lock you in a phone booth and beat the mess out of you. We are going to turn your brain into pulp, and we don't care what happens from there. We're just going to figure it out.
Will, have we seen consecutive "How do you like me now" victories? I'm sure that there have been like Clark Lease at some point in recent memory, but like since we've been doing the show, has it ever felt so appropriate to put the "How do you like me now" tag on consecutive victories? Because in my opinion, Brent Venables earned it.
It's fitting too because you could kind of make the case of the four straight ranked wins by DeBoer after the FSU loss, where it's like everybody's talking about fire him, but then to slay that dragon as Brent Venables, get to your point, DeBoer has all these weird stats where it's like you just can't go in there and beat him at home, no matter if there's a funny little bulldog on this hoodie. It doesn't matter, and yet here we are.
No R. Mason Thomas in this one. Oklahoma without its best defensive player overall and delivered that type of effort. This was the type of defensive performance that you envisioned when you hired Brent Venables to replace Lincoln Riley. You wanted to be able to say, one day we're going to beat an elite team because we have a defense that's confusing and flustering an elite quarterback. And that is what OU did in this one. You had, I thought, an overwhelmed Alabama offensive line that wasn't picking up blitzers. And Taylor Wine and Kip Lewis, man, those guys were everywhere, all over the place. Wine had the big forced fumble. All Bang the Drum team member Eli Bowen gets a pick six early that kind of made you go, this could be one of those days. Peyton Bowen, his brother, puts it away with that just textbook pass breakup on that play. And I know the Alabama sideline wanted a PI. I watched the replay of that. I'm like, I think that was a pretty good breakup. If you ask me, man, that's tough to do. That's a low percentage throw to make in that spot too. And, maybe not a textbook effort overall from the Oklahoma defense where they're going to watch the film and go, yeah, we did everything right because Alabama still significantly outgained them. But considering the circumstances, forcing 3 turnovers and creating that havoc that you talked about and pressuring Ty Simpson like that in the second half, that was the blueprint. If you were going to draw up the Oklahoma blueprint to win this game, that was it.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, flashing all the way back to the Bryce Underwood game where we said Bryce Underwood's going to be underwater against his Venables defense. He's going to confuse him in so many ways. It was almost like the only mistake that Venables made was giving Ty Simpson respect because once he treated him like a quarterback that was in over his head, he became one. That's the crazy thing
Yeah.
about it is that, like I said, I expected to see Ty Simpson, Heisman, potential front runner, guy who has kind of led Alabama back from the brink time and time again. The last guy you would think that you'd pressure. But like I said, I think he saw something in what Blake Baker did last year, which is kind of a bleep it mentality that you see in that team that's fighting with bowl eligibility in LSU. That's like, hey, you know what? Send everybody. Let's figure it out. And they found success. And so for Brent Venables, it's like, well, they found success. We're not dead yet. Maybe we could just send it. And it just seemed like it very rarely came back to bite them. Even if you look at Ty Simpson's numbers, the total offense, the passing yards, all that. But those exact moments Alabama has been so crisp in, they looked a little bit lost against that R. Mason Thomas-less Oklahoma defense.
I do want to get to the Bama side of this, but I just think what Oklahoma did was so impressive. Again, not a vintage John Mateer game, but outside of the grounding call that forced OU out of field goal range, I still think that Tate Sandell could have gone out there with his short shorts and attempted what would have been like a 67-yarder, and I would have been like, man, probably has enough leg to be able to make it work.
For every yard his shorts get shorter, he's just wearing a thong out there kicking 70-yard field goals. He's unstoppable.
Somebody's gonna do that graphic, and he's gonna be commando going out there and just bombing these lefty kicks. But yeah, I mean, I liked the game that Mateer played. It was kind of a defensive head coach, what you would hope a dual threat would play like, where he doesn't turn the ball over. The 20-yard touchdown run, just pure grit to be able to get into the end zone. So shifty. It's great to see him back healthy with his legs and the things he can do to make people miss, even on like a 6-7 yard gain. Like, you just kind of need that, especially with the struggles they've had running the football. OU now has consecutive wins against AP top 25 teams in true road games. Go into Neyland, be the first team to beat Tennessee in that building, not named Georgia, since 2021. And before this stretch, this 2-game stretch, Oklahoma did not have any wins against AP top 25 teams in true road games in the 2020s. Jalen Hurts was the last OU quarterback to lead them to that type of a win. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. Like, that is no small feat. And Venables, he has approached this clear fork in the road that we talked about before the Tennessee game. We said, if he goes this way, it feels like this is his path into either not necessarily getting fired this season, but hey, you're going to have a new boss, and your new boss is going to scrutinize you and look at you a little bit closer if you veer off and go this way, and if you fade into the 8-4 abyss. Go ask. There are a lot of teams right now that have seen, once you fade into that non-playoff abyss, it is a dark place for a head coach, including the one that he was on the opposite sideline of, Josh Heupel, and seeing the people that have talked about his job and whatever. We don't need to get into that. But now all of a sudden you're looking at this going, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that Oklahoma, with this schedule, all they need to do to get into the college football playoff is beat Mizzou and LSU at home, both of whom are going to have backup quarterbacks in their respective games. At least that's the assumption. That's all anybody in Norman could have hoped for when this schedule came out this year. That's all anybody in Norman could have hoped for after they lost to Texas, maybe even before they lost to Texas. And to me, like, that deserves that deserves so much praise. And the selection committee might even give OU the benefit of the doubt with this next ranking because of the Mateer hand injury. And now seeing the difference, it's not like if Mateer had struggled again in this game, and if he's still doing those things, it's like, all right, how long are you going to give them the benefit of the doubt? But kind of seeing the team that they've been when he's been healthy versus not, I think that matters kind of too. And they're in a really nice position now to host a home playoff game. And Will, dare I say, the chaos scenario in the SEC died because Texas didn't beat Georgia. So ultimately, we're not going to get the full-on chaos scenario that we talked about. OU beating Bama was part of it, but there's a new chaos scenario.
Okay.
USC won at Iowa.
I like where this is going.
If USC beats Oregon next week, watch out, because little 7-10 Oklahoma hosting Lincoln Riley in the first round of the playoff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sign me up. Get your popcorn ready, to quote Lane Kiffin. I'd be locked in.
I think I'm rooting for that the hardest of anything in college football this year.
Yeah, that would be so fitting, where it's just like a complete, like, I don't know what we'd call it, a shade fest. Like, those social accounts, I'd turn on notifications, dude. But really quick, back to the Oklahoma part of this, and specifically the John Mateer part of it. You know, it's interesting because I think we have this image of, you know, what a game manager is in our mind. And let me finish there, right? It's like,
I agree. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, that's your, and I'm not going to slander Hoover legend John Parker Wilson. Don't worry. That's your Greg McElroy, right? That's your guy who can hand the ball off, play behind the defense. Well, in modern football, when every game is a field goal game, when there are no real dominant defenses that are holding teams to 10 points, which Oklahoma is probably as close to that as we have in the SEC right now, I think what it is is not losing the game and moving the ball forward. So John Mateer, I don't still think he's totally healthy, because he still doesn't have the deep ball exactly, but he's able to make the plays like we talked about when they matter. And again, he's not having a dominant rushing performance. This is not a dominant rushing team. You know, it's about pulling the levers that you need to pull to win. And that's what he was brought in here to do. That's the thing. You know, would you rather have a quarterback who throws for 400 yards in a loss, or a quarterback who has under 150 passing yards and has one of the ugliest wins you'll ever see? And John Mateer and Brent Venables are sitting there with big smiles going, I like my guy, you know?
I don't blame them. I would like him too. I like a lot of things he's doing. His ability to shake off front side pressure, and Bama had finally been getting the pass rush going. And yeah, there were spots where it showed up in this one, but his goal in this was to be able to stay on schedule and not necessarily do the things that Ty Simpson was doing against pressure. And I thought Mateer did a really nice job of handling that. So on the Alabama side, Will, we know that Alabama had been playing with fire a little bit with the lack of a ground game, but with how well Ty Simpson had been playing, a Heisman Trophy level, and a defense that looked like it was rounding into form, receivers that you could trust late, it was fair to wonder if Alabama could just sort of overcome this and just say, hey, this team's really unique. They're just going to keep winning football games. They feel like they can win close games. And that's probably going to be good enough to still get them really, really far because they have the edge in a lot of very key areas. But against this Oklahoma team, obviously, that was not enough. They seemed to just basically say, we can't handle this type of defensive game plan, and it now paints the picture moving forward that Alabama could struggle. Now, it's easier said than done to execute the things that Oklahoma and really LSU did as well, because you have to be able to generate pressure. You have to trust that you can win up front when Bama runs the football, which that's still not really as much of a thing. But Ty Simpson looked like he was swimming in the deep end in this. And I even had the intrusive thought of this one. Like, I wonder if these last 2 weeks have made Ty Simpson think differently about potentially leaving early for the NFL. And that's going to go a lot of different ways. So I don't pretend like I know. But if he does come back, if these are the games that make him go, I need more reps, I need more ways to be able to figure things out quicker, and I need to be able to get rid of the football, because he was holding on to the football too long at certain points of this one where look, man, you just got to be able to have that sixth sense. And he's been mostly really good at that this year. But Alabama became a team that was, for OU, a little bit too easy to defend. And that's kind of a wild thing for an Alabama offense that we've said a lot of really positive things about. Here's the problem.
Really quick too, like, you're right, it is the personnel. You can see that from Oklahoma and LSU, but I do think it comes down to fear, right? The amount of fear that Alabama used to instill when it was the joyless murder ball, Derrick Henry era, where if you made one mistake, it was over. This is shown to be a little bit more of a mistake-prone Alabama team under DeBoer. This is shown to be a team that you can pin your ears back, and they're not going to make you pay in that way. And I think looking yourself in the mirror and believing that you can capitalize on that is how teams have beaten Alabama.
And this is the game where Bama really wished it had a ground game. Now, maybe, just maybe, Daniel Hill is going to be the plan moving forward.
Hoss or Chungus? Hoss.
Is he tall enough to be a Hoss?
He's pretty tall, man. He's I want to say 6'1", 6'2".
His legs are Hoss. Yes. He's definitely not Chungus. He's not Chungus.
Mm-mm.
No way. But his legs are
6'1", 244.
Yeah. I'd lean Hoss over Chungus for sure. Yeah, he looks like he should be getting the rock 15 to 20 times a game, if for nothing else, to wear down a defense. I think he can wear you down better than Jay Miller can at this point. I don't know how much of that is related to Jay Miller's health or whatever, but Bama still struggled, though. Even though they kind of feel like they might have found something with him, they still, 80 rushing yards in this one? And they did have the Caden Proctor decoy on that, the 4th and 1 conversion to Brooks. Great call by Ryan Grubb on that spot to be able to extend that drive. And even that, Oklahoma, a lot of lesser defenses would have been gashed for 20 yards easily. And OU was still able to hold it to like a 3-yard gain or something on that. Will, I did a bunch of research on Thursday looking into some historical tendencies with Bama's ground game. Bama came into that one averaging 111.9 rushing yards and 3.6 yards per carry. No national champ in the 21st century has been that bad in either spot. That's pretty obvious, right? Like
3.6 yards a carry.
Yeah, bad, real bad. No Bama team in general has been that bad with rushing yards per game since 1955. Dwight D. Eisenhower administration, 3 years before Bear Bryant.
Cold War era, pre-Bear Bryant, Bear Bryant at Kentucky, I think. That is crazy, man.
And that Bama team was 0-10. This Bama team, not 0-10. But the last time that a national champ had fewer than 3.6 yards per carry was 1999 FSU. They were at 3.4 yards per carry. And the last time that a national champ had fewer than 111.9 yards per carry, or not yards per carry, that'd be a record. Let me clean that up.
Well, last time LSU A&M.
You're right. The last time a national champ had fewer than 111.9 rushing yards per game was never. It's never happened. And I went back to 1936 just to try and look this up. Okay, just for the sake of argument here, FSU was the closest to that number, the 1999 FSU team at 122.8. So this isn't going anywhere with Bama. They might feel like they could turn to Daniel Hill and he's going to get them some nice runs in key spots here. Bama has one run of 30 yards all year, and it happened in the final minute against Louisiana Monroe with is it like a fifth string true freshman, and it like in a 73-0 game. Bama's got one such run all year. They're not going to get these chunk plays. They're not even do like the LSU at the end of the game with Caden Durham thing where all of a sudden he picks up 70 yards and then Brian Kelly argues about the rushing totals. They can't even do that. So
that felt unnecessary. No, but you know what's crazy is like, okay, devil's advocate here, right? Like part of that is okay, you schedule FSU at a conference, you lose that game, right? So a lot of the historic Alabama teams wouldn't. I mean, I guess that's not even true though, because they would be playing the USC's and the Virginia Techs or
yeah, just at
whatever.
a neutral site instead of at a visiting venue like that.
Yeah, so actually, you know what? Never mind, because Bama has not run from those matchups. Now that I think about it, they played FSU under Jimbo Fisher and smoked like a top 5 team. So yeah, I think that. I mean, and then where I was going with that is in terms of maybe historically that could change things, but not really, man, because you still have the opportunity within like the ULM game, for instance, to inflate that and kind of cheese it, and then that average lines up with what our eyes see, especially in the SEC, where it's like when they need to run the football, they don't really even have like the kind of scrambles that we've seen at some different times, which has been the most effective part of the run game at times, but not enough to lean on.
Yeah, like we said coming in, Ty Simpson led Bama with 13 missed tackles forced, and Jam Miller was second with 9.
Yep.
And then Jeremy Bernard had, I believe, 7, but on 15 carries this year. It's like they've been trying to do more creative things in the ground game. They tried at certain points to do more creative things in the ground game. And I guess the creative thing was also giving Daniel Hill that type of run. But you just saw from Oklahoma, Bama can still be had by the wrong matchup, and they are not this immovable object. And I think everybody kind of realizes that now they could still, win a couple of college football playoff games and do all those things. But I do think that, kind of this 60 minutes confirmed the notion that Alabama might not have national championship DNA. Like could still have a really good season, but maybe not national championship DNA.
It just depends on how they respond. And Ty Simpson, one thing that I have historically given him credit for is his leadership ability. I think he's a guy who can be really real with himself and look in the mirror. And I feel like I'm almost back to covering the NBA with the way these things swing. It's like a make or miss league, right? Because look at the Bama field goal, right? That changes the entire complexion of the game. So
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about that real quick?
Yeah.
The missed kick by Connor Talty, high snap, shanks the kick. Taylor Wine actually got a piece of it. I don't know if the kick was going to be good anyways. I wish we got to get some sort of metric to be able to figure out if we can do exit velocity in baseball. We can do whether or not a kick would have been good based on block or no block or something like that. We need to just get that out there. Football, figure it out at some point. NFL, that's a project for you to figure out. But seeing Connor Talty then rip his long snapper afterwards, I was like, that ain't good.
Yep, and it's always like that's exactly where I'm going with here. It could be playing the results, right? Because when we see that on the sideline of the championship game with the two Bama guys, famously, it's like, oh, they're never satisfied.
McCarron and Barrett Jones.
It's like, oh, they're never satisfied. We love that, but it's like if it's in the middle of a game. So I always try to take a step back with this type of stuff. Does that mean that Bama, like to your point, I don't know if it takes them on the championship DNA, but I think what it does is it shows the blueprint, right? And there are only a set amount of teams that can capitalize on that. I think that I'm not going to say we didn't dream, but I don't think either of us would have put Oklahoma as one of those teams on the road before that game. So I think that part of it is, you lock the doors of the building just like they did against FSU, which is a much more embarrassing loss. And they were able to overcome that. And you go, hey, let's get our kicking operations down. Okay. And I'm sure Ty Simmons is going to watch this film like a hawk. And there were lots of throws that he left on the field, So that's the thing. One kick here or there. And we're talking about the grittiness of Bama,
For sure. Now the question is, what in the world happens in that Iron Bowl, man? Because, buddy, that just got a whole lot more interesting. That trip to Jordan Hare now takes on new life. DJ Durkin, I'm guessing he was sitting there watching this game, idle, going, you mean to tell me I have this type of opportunity in front of me? Let's see what we can do with this. DJ Durkin, we're recording this 12:05 Eastern on Sunday morning. I will say there is a 95% chance that DJ Durkin is looking at different pressure packages as we speak.
That's the thing. That's kind of the crazy thing is like under the one DJ Durkin game, their defense wasn't great against Pavia. This is a very different Alabama team. Like that's the thing is that I'm sure DJ Durkin was getting into his team based on what they came up against Vanderbilt. So there's an argument to be made that Auburn's defense is right there with Oklahoma, but their offense has been so stupid that it's been impossible to tell.
Chiswick used to tell me that when he and his wife, when he was not coaching and he was just doing SEC Network stuff and he's doing speaking engagements, and Chiswick back with SEC Network now, but when he was an idle coach and he and his wife would like go stay at some like resort or something like that, and he'd like get in his morning treadmill work or something, he would bring his iPad. And this is how big of a football guy Chiswick is, instead of actually just sitting there and like watching whatever's on TV in front of you, you're watching First Take or bringing your iPad, watching Netflix, watching a show or something like that, listening to a podcast, Chiswick would just sit on the treadmill and look at pressure packages and different ways to dial up pressure packages, like what different coaches were doing. And he would watch the All 22, like did that before he even thought I'm getting back into coaching, but did it because he just loves football so much and loves watching defensive minds.
Yeah, love the All 22.
Yeah. Auburn, I hope your current coach, for your sake, is doing exactly that right now. That DJ Durkin is just is just strolling on the treadmill looking at pressure packages because, man, Auburn's got a prime opportunity to play spoiler because, look, I think if Alabama loses that game all of a sudden, you're looking at a 9-3 resume that, yes, while it was a gauntlet to get through, that still changes you if you lose two of those final three games, your final two meaningful games of the season. You're on the outside looking in a conference championship weekend, so you can't even make that argument. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, so that FSU loss did happen, right? Like I would love to know what that's going to look like. But for now, I would not be feeling like, hey, Alabama's automatically in if it beats Eastern Illinois next week.
Wow, Sean Payton disrespecter. No, the home of Tony Romo. No, just kidding.
Dude, my best friend started before he went to Iowa. He went to Eastern Illinois. A lot of kids from my high school went to Eastern Illinois. The great Jimmy Garoppolo, who was in my high school football conference, Mid Suburban League, shout out. He went to Eastern Illinois. So it's the school of quarterbacks. That's more quarterbacks there than in Indiana. So
you're saying, yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating inflection point for Alabama. Is kind of where we're going here. Is that I think they still have the horses. I think they still
and the horses.
They had the horses. Yeah, they got a new horse that just appeared, a new challenger. But yeah, I think that's the beauty of the playoff era is that a win like this or a loss like this doesn't sink your season. And we've talked about DeBoer is really a perfect coach at times for the playoff. No, he hasn't made one yet at Alabama, but I feel like that's almost a certainty at this point. Outside of a really freaky Auburn loss, that's like a really, really
is it a certainty? Is it
like a really, really freaky Auburn loss, like a blowout? Buddy. Which I mean, hey, who's to say? But I think like. Their ability, like I said, to take punches and kind of return them is interesting. And as a kid, I will just say my fun little silly thing here, which is that these two coaches of the dual box was so funny. It is like the happy and sad face, the angel and the devil, because you can see Venables kind of with that wry smile, DeBoer looking angry. The two reddest human beings I've ever seen, both wearing black, I believe. And it was just like, are these guys cousins? What's going on?
Venables owns him. He's got a 2-0 record now. No revenge game to be had for Alabama. Remarkable what he's been able to do to this Alabama offense in 2 years. Speaking of owning another coach, Will.
Speaking of SEC expansion teams.
Kirby Smart owns Steve Sarkisian, and there's no denying it. None. Anything else to say? That was our analysis. What if Kirby just owns Sark? Yep.
Man, going back to like the whole Kirby is such a throwback coach, and I've grown to like just respect him and kind of love watching him coach a little bit more because he has such like dad energy. Like we talked about, he's getting a little bit chubbier. He's starting to care a little bit less what he says in the media and just let it fly. That onside kick was the most like I could see him taking off his belt and being like, "That's enough, Steve. That's enough. I'm sick of this. We don't belong in the same field. You got way too close to me, and this is going to stop right now. You need to sit down and shut your butt up because we're going to church."
That was the moment when it was official that Kirby owns Sark. That onside kick that he pulled off 21-10 early in the fourth quarter. Texas is about to get the ball back after it looked like Arch was kind of settling in. Beautiful throw that he had to Ryan Wingo in the end zone. Great arm angle that he worked. And Texas maybe going to get back in the game or at least keep it a close game. And instead, that play that Georgia just executes as well as any team could ever execute an onside kick. And then the sideline shots right after told you everything you needed to know. That game was over. They could have just stopped the game right there. Kirby, whole sideline freaks out. Kirby, I think, celebrated the onside kick more than he did the first national championship. I truly think that.
I love this version of Kirby. It's like it's so like he expected coaching to go a certain way, and he's getting a version of it for sure. But you could just tell he's like, all right, man. Like he's just all right, fine. Like that's cool. We'll roll with it. And how about Peyton Woodring, undercover Cajun? Didn't know
Yeah.
this from Lafayette. I'm sure he grew up watching the Sean Payton Super Bowl onside kick. Got to
Take credit for it,
dream.
Will. Yeah,
If
sure.
if I had one question after this weekend, I would have been like, "Did you grow up watching that kick? How did it feel?" Because we made a joke about, "Oh, you got a Cajun spy in your midst. We're gonna bring it up." I went, "Oh my gosh, what a time to see my favorite play of all time reenacted."
Have you seen? I'm sure like people listening to this have been targeted for this like, or you've seen this video on your feed at some point. The guy who just practices onside kicks in his kitchen.
Yes.
Like going into random objects, like, oh, it's going into this pot. Oh, it's going into this cabinet, and I'm going to close the door. Peyton Woodring could do that video, I think. After seeing that kick,
Yes.
oh yeah,
Yes. Again, I'm Manning on the other side of it, helpless. Anyway, but in a day that you could argue that special teams was kind of the only thing that was going Texas's way. You had a couple of shank punts here and there. You almost had the big return by Texas. They get called back on a hold. It was like, nope, you're not even
dude.
getting that. Belt's coming off. Nope, special teams are going to lose this game, son.
And right when Sark sees it, he knows. He knows, and he had told the production crew, he's like, "I know something's coming. I know it, like maybe it's going to be an onside kick. Kirby's
Not
going to
well
have something up
enough.
his sleeve." That's when you know that guy owns you. When you even feel like you know it's coming, and there's still nothing you can do about it. That to me just says everything. And now having this 3-0 record against him, it's not just, oh, it was last year's team. No, this is Kirby owning Steve Sarkisian in every possible way right now, when these are two coaches that are seemingly at the peak of their powers. I was wondering, going into this one, like, what's the adversity that Georgia could ask for this time? After, I think you could argue, both of those two games last year, Georgia was facing an uphill climb for different reasons. The first game last year being in Austin, how important that game felt like it was going to be for Texas, national perception of the program, first year in the SEC. Georgia hadn't played particularly well to that point. And then we saw what happened. And then game 2 in the SEC championship, obviously the Carson Beck injury and the Hail Mary right before halftime. You've got to turn to Gunnar Stockton in the second half. So what was going to look like game 3 if Georgia was going to hit that bit of adversity, knowing, all right, Georgia's favored, Georgia's at home, Georgia's been the better football team this year. But Georgia losing CJ Allen in this one, their best defensive player, that was supposed to be it. And he misses the second half, and Georgia doesn't look like it misses him, which is crazy. And CJ Allen's an All-Bang the Drum Team guy, so like I don't want to minimize what he's been to this group, but man, you forgot at different points, like, oh yeah, CJ Allen not out there, doesn't matter. They're just going to keep rolling out bodies. Arch was hounded all night. I joked that the over/under was 30 Texas rushing yards, thinking surely Texas will hit it this time. Have to hit it this time. They had 23. Will. Texas had 23 rushing yards in this game.
I wonder how many they had on the first drive.
That's a good question.
It must have been. It felt like more than 20 on just that drive, because I feel like they must have had. I can go look this up. There's no
Yeah.
reason why I can't, so I'll get back to it. But it felt like that was going to be their game plan from the jump, and it just felt like, I hate to say this because it was a close game, but this is a football gods game where the final score did actually indicate how it felt. Yeah, this was a 4-point game at different times, but it really but that was when Georgia really like stepped on them. But yeah, like when they came out like that, I was like, they're going to either have to trust Arch Manning, or they're going to have to run the ball downhill. Like doing this side to side nonsense, and watching a Mike Bobo versus Steve Sarkisian side to side fest was so frustrating at times, because it was just like you could see Mike Bobo be like, I invented this. Don't try to. You got 2 orbit motions. I'm going to break out 3. But yeah, like I thought that was going to be their game plan, and it looked decently successful. And then they even got away from that.
I loved Bobo's game plan, by the way. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, just to put a bow on that thought, Texas has played 3 games against Georgia since the start of last year, and their best rushing total was 31 yards. Okay? Combined, all 3 games, they have not hit the century mark. They had 60 in the 2 games combined last year, and then 23. So they're at 83 rushing yards in 3 games against Georgia. That's what it looks like to be owned. That is the definition. We are one step ahead of you. And it did matter that Kirby watched the quarterback that he wanted, I think, more than any quarterback he's wanted. Whether he admits that or not, truth serum Kirby would tell you they went all in to get Arch. And Arch, I think if he doesn't go to Texas, I think he goes to Georgia. And Kirby's like, wait, I got Gunnar Stockton. I'm good. I'm fine. Gunnar was brilliant in this one, Will. What were the vibes in the crowd from all things Gunnar and the throws that he would make? Because sometimes you get this sense of like when a quarterback doesn't complete a pass on third down, or like there are certain limitations within his game, and then you just kind of hear the murmuring. But what was it like as Gunnar Stockton continued to make clutch play after clutch play in this one?
I think that, like I said, there was a little bit of clinching because it felt like we knew Gunnar Stockton was capable of doing what they did in the fourth quarter. And it was just like the pick to me felt so ill-timed, not from Gunnar Stockton's standpoint, because I feel like that guy was NFL open. If you kind of go back and watch
Anthony
it.
Hill Jr. made a great play on the ball.
Yes.
That is an All-American linebacker making a play in coverage that reminds you why he's an All-American linebacker and why he's going to have a long, successful career in the NFL.
So, like that to say, you start off with these two beautiful drives that are like exactly the Gunnar Stockton's strength, right? It's like the play action, the like a little bit of trickeration, but making great reads, reading like all the way down the field and hitting the guy who's open, feeding him, like so some Noah Thomas, all that. And then like the pick happens, and mentally I'm like, oh, I hope they don't start to go away from that because I still trust Gunnar Stockton. That was just an insane play. It felt like I said, they did start to do that. They did start to get a little bit cute, but then when it became crunch time, that's when you start to love a guy like Stockton, who's just, again, a perfect fit for the system.
Stetson Bennett the fifth, man.
Yep.
He's looking like it. Speaking of the fifth, 5 total touchdowns in this one. Second time that he's done that. The other came against Ole Miss. So there's top 10 teams coming to Athens. Oh, I'll get 5 touchdowns. Don't worry. I'll figure it out. SEC Final had the stat that before Stockton had those 2 5-touchdown games, the last Georgia quarterback to do that was, did you catch that note?
Was it Stetson?
Aaron Murray.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not like in any game, okay? 5 touchdowns in any game, but not just like a top 10 team or something like that. But, man, I think Stockton and Bobo are in such lockstep right now. Just seem to understand kind of what's expected of each other. You don't see these plays where they get to the line of scrimmage and it's frantic. It feels like Gunnar knows exactly when he should be running in these spots. And I've talked about this for years and years. So I apologize for sounding like a broken record. But for such a long time, I've been frustrated that Georgia quarterbacks have been so unwilling to keep it on the RPO. And Gunnar actually keeps it at the exact right time. And it's so satisfying to watch that you're just like the amount of times that we had to watch Jake Fromm just hand the ball off to Nick Chubb or Sony Michel when there's 2 yards max and they're going to have to get like another 1 or 2 after contact. And maybe they get 4 on the play. And you see if they had just kept it to himself, it's 15 easy. You're moving the sticks. Like,
that's
Gunnar
an underrated part of
well.
football. You're so right about that because that's what quarterbacking used to be, right? Like 20, 30 years ago, it really was, hey, there's 4 yards here, go take it. It doesn't matter who you are. And then I think we got a little bit spoiled by the more athletic quarterbacks that were able to actually like turn that into their main thing, which is like you can make the wrong read and still get a first down. And really what that should be on an RPO or like an option is like, hey, you fall forward and get 5 yards and we live to see another day. And Gunnar can still make guys miss here and there, but it's about not being scared to get hit on a play and not take a loss,
And Texas respected his legs. And I thought Herbstreit did a really good job on the broadcast talking about that on the touchdown that he had to Lucky, where Gunnar even did the thing where he tucked it. He tucked the ball, and it looked like he was about to run. And all of a sudden, the defensive backfield eyes are just glued to him. And then Lucky kind of sneaks back into the end zone for the touchdown there. Not that they needed it on that play, but just was in total control. And the 4th down calls were tremendous. I mean, those are the most magnified plays.
Oh, that was football not safe for work. It was like getting the guy stuck, and I believe it was what's his name?
It was Colin Simmons. Simmons who jumped
and it's
offside.
Like, like you're getting these guys to look silly. And Connor, I've been sitting on this. I'm giddy, waiting to tell you this. 33 yards rushing on that first Texas drive. So they went backwards from there.
I think sack adjusted, they finished with 39. I want to say, let me pull that stat up just so that I'm correct on that. Yeah, sack adjusted rushing yards. Texas finished with 39, 2.8 yards per carry. Arch had 43 pass attempts, and they had, with their running backs, 10 rushing attempts. not the way they drew it up.
Yep.
Not the way that they drew it up. And I don't know if that's, I mean, that's, to me, a lot of that's, you can't just pin that on game flow either. You know, it's a 14-10 game to start of the fourth quarter. That's the other guy is in your head. That is
Yes.
being owned in
It's you
those
have a
spots.
script, it works, and then you get into Joe Sloan prison of your own design where you go, what do? I need two orbit motions. I need this guy got it sideways. And like I said, it just felt like a waste of time. Like the whole offensive gameplay, like I'm starting to kind of see your light as far as the Sark might need to relinquish play calling duties. But at the same time, Arch throws such a bad ball most of the time that I get it. Like I get why he's doing all this trickeration all the time. And I get why Georgia's going, hey, run the ball. You're not going to do it for long. And I told Perry in the stands, like, this is the most confusing great defense I've ever watched, like with Georgia, because it's like you talk about CJ Allen going down. It's not like we need Jordan Davis, we need Jalen Carter, we need Jacoby Dean, or we won't be successful. It's like I can't even really explain how they're smoking these teams, and in these moments they look like they're small, but then you look up and you're like they're completely dominating this game, and I don't exactly know why, but they're doing it every game.
Well, you know how we used to talk about with Jimbo, and there were actual numbers. Jordan Rogers talked about this on the broadcast, and it was something that had been very noticeable throughout the Jimbo Fisher tenure at Texas A&M, where they, for whatever reason, were only willing to do pre-snap motions and run tempo and stuff when they were facing Bama. It was like
Yes.
Jimbo said,
Yes.
all right, I need to break tendency. I need to be willing to do this, and this to win this type of matchup. Does Georgia just do that with pressure packages against Texas? Because my God, they and Kirby afterwards, Laura Rutledge asked him like pass rush seemed like I know that's been kind of an issue this year, but they seem to really, you seem to really get a lot of pressure on Arch Manning. Kirby's like, they got after him, didn't they? You're just saving all these plays for Texas.
And then you see somebody on the Texas side's got a camcorder just waiting to run it to Birmingham and show the SEC officials. See, they did this. You can't do this now. Like after sitting through SEC media days, all the outlawed fronts moving, and it was just Georgia clips. It was like, okay, man, fine. That's why Kirby doesn't show any of this stuff because he shows up against Sark and just completely blows him off the ball, and then Sark is just mad about it.
Man, at this point, that might be his only option. It's so unbelievably noticeable though that Georgia just brings it against Texas. They bring out the best in them, and we got to ask this question because now on the heels of two consecutive dominant performances in games in which Georgia was a one-score favorite. Let's remember that going into Starkville, they were considered a one-score favorite. Maybe it ended up like Georgia -9.5, but nonetheless, at least a single-digit favorite these last two games. They've turned into laughers. Is Georgia now the scariest team in America? Okay. And you can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. And I really hope that Ohio State internet doesn't take this the wrong way because Lord knows they take everything so personally and they're just ridiculous. But Ohio State has been the most dominant team in college football, like bar none, not even close. If you're saying, give me a non-quarterback that I'm going to take in college football and you're not taking Jeremiah Smith, I'm like, okay, I'll take Jeremiah Smith. That's fine. Ohio State also hasn't faced a top 25 team since like the Clinton administration. Not true. They faced Illinois back in week 7, but you at least thought about it.
Oh no, Illinois week 7.
Yeah, right. Georgia has had to fight back and make meaningful calls like the onside kick in crucial moments against good teams. And you could say, well, the fact that they were in these games late, maybe that's just, a sign that Georgia's not as good of a team as Ohio State. But the fact that we're seeing Georgia now get pressure, bully people on the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball. Ohio State hasn't trailed in the second half all year, and they haven't had a single-digit lead in the fourth quarter since September 27th at Washington. By the way, lock of the week, easy this week. Georgia's scarier right now, okay? Georgia is scarier from that standpoint. Doesn't mean that they're the better team. Doesn't mean that they would absolutely beat Ohio State. But just in terms of hey, I'm in a 60-minute war with my season on the line. What's the type of situation that I want to be going up against? There's just a scenario in which you could go against Ohio State and say, hey, they're at least out of their element. What's going to put Georgia out of its element at this point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, again, devil's advocate, right? If you're an Ohio State fan, you're going, all right, well, we already beat Gunnar Stockton, or not, sorry, we didn't beat Gunnar Stockton. Notre Dame beat Gunnar Stockton and made him look like human last year. Like, we beat Notre Dame, and you can kind of do this whole thing where it's
Different
like,
player.
we beat Tennessee, like, whatever. But, The thing about Kirby Smart is how little care he has. And like I said, that's just what's so fascinating to me is when we talk about the Bama stuff where you go, and again, not talking Georgia Bama, but I was like, okay, against these great teams, you have to believe in yourself. Say what you will about how that Bama game finished. They believed in themselves. And I think that in the modern age of college football, you have to do that. You can't just punt the ball. And I think that that's what's so special about this group of guys in Georgia. Like I said, it's like, yeah, it's cool to have the Zachariah Branches. Yeah, Gunnar Stockton is a great fit for this system. He's a great quarterback. But again, it's not like, again, last year was like, oh, we have these 2, 3 guys that if they don't step up, we're cooked. We have Carson Beck and ETN. If they don't have great games, we're cooked. It's like the multi-headed dragon specifically, I feel on defense, where, on offense, it feels like a little bit more scripted and it feels like a little bit less chaotic than the defense can. But yeah, I feel like you've had the stat about them trailing in all these big SEC games. I mean, I'm so fascinated by Georgia and Alabama headed toward a playoff situation. After Saturday, a little bit fascinated by A&M as well, but we'll see.
Yeah, which we'll get to in a second here. One more thing to mention as Georgia looks like it's very much locked into the college football playoff. I'd be stunned if you can get odds on that this week. I think those odds are very likely off the table now at 9-1. Charlotte next week, Georgia Tech at Mercedes-Benz. That's going to be great. Yes, I know it should be played at Bobby Dodd. Okay, we'll get into that another time here. But Kirby got his 23rd win against an AP top 10 team. 23rd, okay? Since he became a head coach in 2016, which is now, this is year 10 for Kirby Smart, here are your active leaders in wins against AP top 10 teams. That's AP top 10 at the time of the matchup. Kirby Smart, 23. Ryan Day, 17. Dabo Sweeney, 11. Lincoln Riley, 7. And then there's 7 guys with 5, including Sark. Ryan Day, who I realized Ryan Day did not become a head coach until 2019. Okay, I realized that. Ohio State fans were in my mentions about that. Of course they were. Ryan Day is the only coach with half as many top 10 wins as Kirby Smart over the course of the last decade. Never, and I mean never, get bored of that, Georgia fans. These are the glory days that you are in right now, that you could witness a game like that. All these times during the early 2020s when you're like, man, I would just love it if we could have a big headliner home game and just have this like kind of flex type game in front of, the home crowd. This is that. This is that. Enjoy it. Savor it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the game day presentation at Georgia is awesome. I'll say it; they probably do deserve more night games, and I think that feeling it just feels like I said, it's like if you were to show an alien a college football environment that's not, because like we can talk about great home fields. Like as an LSU fan, the presentation is completely different in LSU or Tennessee, where it really does feel like you're in the Roman Coliseum and people are throwing batteries at you or whatever. There is a level of like respect at Georgia and like things work. Like that was the joke I kept telling Perry. Is like parking was the easiest I've ever had in my life. Like truly don't get too like focused on the little things because every school in America would rather kind of have your situation where it goes to you have a coach who you don't have to worry about leaving. He played at your school. He is the probably best coach in the sport. Even with the Ryan Day stuff, he still has the ghosts of seasons past, I think, in a way that Kirby doesn't. And so, yeah, that being said, I mean, it's just nuts how someone can survive in the SEC and thrive as long as Kirby has with different quarterbacks, different teams, different identities of his teams, different coordinators. And I mean, everybody thinks like, oh, we're going to hire this guy and it's going to go this way. But this is the rom com. This is the meet cute where it all works out,
Texas's playoff hopes, life support. I thought the fourth quarter was just such a brutal development. I said going in, look, if Texas loses a down to the wire game and then they beat A&M, like they're still going to have a playoff chance at 9-3. They're really now in a spot where they're probably going to need to blow out A&M and get some chaos. Otherwise, this could be curtains just because of how lopsided this turned out. And you didn't have that fourth quarter response you've had in a lot of these other games where even Florida, that felt like a blowout, and then they made it close down the stretch. Didn't have that because Kirby owns Sark. That's why.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. South Carolina and Texas A&M. Oh my God. One of the most baffling games I've ever watched. Ever. A&M falls behind 30-3. And then 28 unanswered in the second half. Wins this game to likely clinch a playoff berth. Not sure who Jekyll and Hyde watch, but even if they watched this game, they'd be like, all right, easy guy. Let's chill. Okay, we're the gold standard. What you're doing is a different, stark contrast, night and day, black and white, yin and yang, whatever you want to say. That was this game.
Yin and yang are the twins, and I appreciate them for that.
Yeah, totally. They go together. This didn't go. This was oil and water. Okay, this A&M getting to 10-0, first time since 1992, was anything but the cakewalk that I assumed it would be. Even Colin Klein calling the trick play where he's like, let's have a true freshman running back throw it in this spot on 3rd and 1 when we're up 1 point. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, you're going to actually turn the football over and give South Carolina a potential last-minute drive where they only need to make a field goal to be able to beat you and stun you in this way. Even that was just, what is A&M doing? What is A&M doing? That first half, Will. Here's a question that I asked at a lot of different points of that first half, and I'm sure A&M fans, you were asking this question as well. Has a top 3 team ever played a worse half of football on their home field? I don't think so. At least not this late in the season to a 3-win team. That's what made it so baffling of all of it. Was just you're left wondering, did you do anything right in the first half? Because Marcel Reed was a walking turnover, both with accuracy, bad decisions while getting pressured. When he did deliver an on-target throw, A&M just dropped it. A&M couldn't run the ball with their Joe Moore Award semifinalist offensive line that's had ideal continuity all year. A&M led the nation in sacks per game. Lenore Sellers has been sacked more than any quarterback in college football, and they couldn't sack him once in the first half. Cassius Howell's breaking up passes and whatnot, but A&M couldn't even make a kick. 30-3? What? Did not make a lick of sense, Will. No explanation.
I've thought about this game a lot, and I think I have concocted the take that will make everyone upset. And I think it is the correct take here, which is that Marcel Reed saved them. And I texted you
no
about
doubt,
this.
no doubt.
And like that's the crazy thing is that going into this game, I said you're going to look across the aisle for Sellers, and you're going to see a guy that is so supported by his cast in Marcel Reed. You're going to be jealous. Couldn't have been more wrong. May never have been more wrong.
Same.
There were like drop passes. I mean, Tommy Moffitt maybe has been going on too many podcasts lately because they got bullied on both lines of scrimmage. It wasn't just the offensive line. It was the fact that South Carolina morphed into the Monstars against this A&M team that has, again, been doing a press tour about how physical they are. And then suddenly you go against the South Carolina team that, again, this is the sad part of it. Connor, I don't know if I've ever seen a team that like is in more disbelief of the situations that they're in when they're creating these big situations. You look at this game, the Alabama game. I have one of my favorite memes is a cat going, huh? And I feel like while South Carolina is just smoking these good teams, they're just looking at the camera like, huh? Like there was a pass.
Beamer's not though. Did you see what Beamer said?
I know. No, Beamer's fired up, but like they get into these moments and it's like they just are like, how did we get here? And like the turnover with the freshman running back is such a great decision where it's like, dude, or such a great inflection point where like A&M is like, here, dude, have the ball, figure it out. And there's just no faith that they can, with an interim offensive coordinator, I think at a better day than many expected, even overall.
Mike Furry was good for at least the first half.
That's the thing. It's so hard to find something like to really draw a through line through this game because in the first half, Marcel Reed was horrible. In the second half, I think he did enough. But I think it's the same thing I said against Alabama. You can look at the result and say, okay, this was awesome. Kind of inverted, right? Okay, this was awesome. You guys dug deep. The November stuff with A&M, put those in the closet. On the other side, you got to go, hey, man, we can't get pushed around like this and make Marcel Reed throw for 500 yards in the playoff. It's not going to work for us,
Yeah. There are so many different ways you can take this, and maybe so many of them are narrative driven. But yeah, Beamer, as this is unfolding in the first half, he's doing the interview, and I respect Beamer, friend of the show. You guys know this. He's been very good to us over the years. Okay, and I think Beamer in general has been mostly very fair with the media. I think he's got very good self-awareness. And so I don't say this to disparage him or just like make fun of him for the sake of making fun of him. Him saying in the middle of the game that they're not surprised to be playing so well against an A&M team that it beat by 24 points last year. I was like, so we're just supposed to pretend nothing happened since then? Are we pretending this game was last week? Are we supposed to ignore the fact that your team has been a disaster all year? Like,
Connor, that's electric because I was obviously watching this with the sound off and I didn't hear that interview. And my takeaway was they look completely lost and unprepared in these moments. And if he physically gave a quote that was like, yeah, dude, duh, it's like that shows you why the second half played out that way, honestly.
Yeah, and you could say, well, water found its level. I think maybe history needs to put respect on this game for how chaotic it was, because I think a lot of people will just, if you were casually watching college football, you're like, team gets off to a slow start. It's 11 a.m. kick. They're just not ready to go. And yeah, they came roaring back in the second half. That is what happened, but it's also not the story of how this played out and how unbelievable it was to watch this in real time. And I just, to me, was so stunned at how bad A&M had played, because they hadn't had a floor like that all year. And when the college football playoff field comes out, I just don't think it's possible to have a playoff team play worse half of football than what A&M did. Like, I truly don't. And I understand, like, South Carolina's a preseason top 15 team. They have talent. They have guys that care. They have, this quarterback that is kind of a cheat code at times. I understand all that. And I praise Lenore Sellers. Clearly what Mike Furry was doing on the offensive side of the ball added more to the belief that Mike Shula, as I tweeted, should have been fired in August.
That's what we do know about this game, is that Mike Shula is not doing either half of this game. He's just never putting you in that position.
Yeah, exactly. But it was awkward and tense from a standpoint as well that Mike Elko reportedly agreed to this extension, this new contract, this 6-year deal that, as Pete Thamel reported, going to make him one of the 10 highest paid coaches in the sport. And eventually it's going to be $11 million annually. Jimbo money, actually. Kidding, probably. That's mean. We don't need to go there. But
these coaches and these agents, they need cahoots, all right?
Right? They are. They very much are. Just when we think the market is about to correct itself, it's like, no, actually, year two, we're going to go with this type of contract. And that's a significant raise for Mike Elko, understandably so, with the job he's done. Will, I'm convinced that the state trooper took all of his anger out on Nick Harbor.
What an insane game, man. I mean, what an insane game. And like Nick Harbor, I mean, just like is being unlocked this year amid this like kind of disastrous season. I feel like he's had enough of these plays that we can finally say, or I can say with hope, like, because he's the classic guy that never really pans out, the 5-star track guy at U-Sport, and he really has like kind of taken focus off of the track stuff, really put more time into his craft in football. Maybe the fastest guy in the SEC. Like, he makes that one little cut, and it's like, see ya. Gone. And then you realize he's like pulling his leg, and it's like he was not going as fast as he probably could have been. And then it gets weirder from there,
Yes. So if you didn't see this, as Will mentioned, like Nick Harbor just hits the Jets, takes off on this touchdown, the last like 15, 20 yards. It looked like he kind of like was pulling up a little bit, maybe he tweaked something with a hamstring. I don't really know, but he kind of does the Bo Jackson thing where he goes through the tunnel. And that's the only reason Bo Jackson went through the tunnel Monday Night Football in Seattle he's like, I was trying not to pull something. All right. Like, I'm going full speed. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to take off. And so as Nick Harbor is going through the tunnel, he had already passed by the state trooper, and
the state trooper had already shoved his way through 2 South Carolina players.
But no, so he hadn't done that yet. Like, he had already gone through, and then he's coming back, as he's coming back through to like get back to the playing field. Like, one of like another South Carolina receiver had joined him, and the state trooper who is walking just tries to walk through these South Carolina players. And how you thought you were going to walk through them is insane enough. And of course, I'm in my head, I'm thinking that as this is happening in real time, and I've watched this like 20 different times, this clip of this state trooper doing this, because of how awkward it was. I'm thinking in my Midwest brain, this guy is about to say, "Oh, excuse me, sorry. Oh, my bad, didn't see you there." And instead, the state trooper like turns and scolds Nick Harbor for bumping into him. And if you look at the state trooper's elbow, he like was elbowing the other South Carolina players. He's doing it. Bizarre, absolutely bizarre. Dude had fully initiated contact on this. Again, I'm convinced he took his anger out on these 2 South Carolina players and scolded Harbor. And then, don't you know it, credit A&M police for getting that guy off his shift. They tweeted that out later in the day that he was removed of his game day duties. He needs to be removed of his duties full time. and not just because LeBron was tweeting about it.
Dude, LeBron's the funniest person on earth. Like unintentionally for sure. When he tries to be funny, he's not that funny. But it's like when he sees any cause that he could pile on, he always does. This is maybe the funniest cause I've seen him be like, and by the way, that A&M State Trooper in the South Carolina game, I was definitely locked into that. Anyway, so with that being said, I mean, how about the composure from Nick Harbor to simultaneously score an 80-yard touchdown and get injured? Like the amount of emotions and physical stuff he's going through at that point in time to then get bumped into, initiated contact by
He's wearing pads, man. He's
by
wearing
a
pads.
state trooper, right? You're talking to your teammate. You're like, but he doesn't even really look like he's celebrating. It looks like his teammate's kind of going over to him, like, "Are you good, dude? Like, are you okay?" And then the state trooper hits him. He's like, "Okay, dude, whatever." And he starts walking away. I don't know what that guy mouth feeling, but looked aggressive. And like most of America in that moment is like, "Hey, dude, double bird, like bleep you, like truly, like why are you in my space right now? I'm a football player. This is a football stadium. It's not a cop stadium." And so, really, truly, like kudos to him because that could have gotten way worse. And shout out to Jeremy Hill who commented on SDS's thing, and he was like, "What if bro ain't leave? Then what? Like, what if he got what he wanted out of that altercation and Harvard didn't walk away? That's the real question."
The other real question: do we know if this guy went into the A&M locker room at halftime and gave a pump-up speech? Because they were pretty darn good after that.
See, that's how you hit somebody, all right? Tommy Moffitt?
Look, greater than 0.0% chance. Yep. That guy went in there and said, look, full like Tim McGraw's character in Friday Night Lights. Just, that's how you hit someone.
I got too much Aggie in me, Paul. I couldn't let him score.
Yeah, he does. I got a little too much Aggie, a little too much pre-workout going into that one. That game was just so unbelievably black and white, and not because it's weird because it wasn't like anything in the second half. It truly flipped on a switch in the way that we talked about with Georgia and Auburn. It wasn't like one play with the Jackson Arnold goal line thing or whatever, but close to that was the 4th and 12 scramble that Marcel Reed makes when A&M, if they don't get that, like I think they get blown out if he doesn't pick that up. And it was kind of the play that got them going, but maybe not quite as obvious that that's when things really change for him. But Marcel Reed, you're right. He locked in the second half, 298 second half passing yards for a guy that a lot of people are like, can he throw? Is he good enough to be a quarterback? And A&M only needed 20 minutes to take the lead back, which is kind of crazy when you consider how bad they played in the first half and how furious that second half comeback was. And as much as Reed gets credit for the comeback, the defense also finally started to harass Sellers, 4 second half sacks, ultimately largest comeback in school history, largest comeback in FBS this year. And the previous 286 teams were undefeated when up 27 in SEC play, dating back to 2004. And no longer. Yeah.
I mean, again, like if you're on the A&M side, you're like, wow. I mean, we've totally beaten this. I mean, it's the inverse of the UCLA game, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, like we
That's
have the ability.
Good call, Will. I had that thought in this game, and I forgot to mention that. You're exactly right. It was the A&M UCLA game that was on the Sunday night. Josh Rosen to kick off the 2017 season.
Oh, man, Josh Rosen, a guy that I got duped by. Anyway, so that being said, like you just kind of knew as an A&M fan for all this time that the wheels are going to fall off. Something terrible was going to happen. Getting smoked by South Carolina, 2 years in a row is kind of inexplicable. And when the eyes of everyone are upon you, right, it's like, okay, well, we should be the number 1 team in America. We should be better than Ohio State. We start to maybe read our own press clippings a little bit. It's, again, hard to read through that. But if you're A&M, a win is a win is a win in the SEC. And some of the stuff, and going back to the Marcel Reed stuff, how many of these drops were due to the receivers not having soft enough hands? How many of them were due to Marcel not throwing catchable balls? In the end, it doesn't really matter because I love that you keyed in on that scramble. That's what greatness is. That's what great quarterbacking is to go, honestly, at this point in this game, I'm not even going to make it. I'm not even going to make it close. I'm not even going to give the guy the opportunity to drop the ball. I'm going to just handle it myself. No worries. Like I said, it was an offensive line, a receiver core, a run game that kind of let him down throughout the whole day. He said, you know what? We don't want to lose this one to my legs right now.
And Sellers tried to do that on the very last play of the game. Didn't have the running room to be able to make that work, and it wasn't. But you're right. It was almost like he said, you know what, screw it. And Colin Klein did not have a good game. He did not have a good game as a play caller, not just because of the running back pass that turned the ball over late, but also just the lack of design runs and how much they were still throwing the football when clearly, I don't know if it was just the wind in the second quarter, but Marcel Reed was 6 for 19 passing in the first half. Receivers couldn't catch. your advantage was supposed to be in the trenches. And it felt like they were kind of giving up on the ground game, didn't have the design runs. It was almost like they were treating South Carolina like it was going to be a group of 5 team and you didn't want to have Reed exposed to some of those hits. But I don't know. It was just kind of a bizarre game plan overall. I looked up the UCLA game from 2017. It's still hard to process that it was 44-10 with 2 minutes and 7 seconds left in the third quarter, and A&M lost.
I mean, that's your inflection point, right? And like, you talked about Oko getting the extension. I hate to mention Danny Cannell's name because it feels like a little bit of kink for him at this point. But doing
we love DK. We love DK.
How you extended this guy today? It's like, brother, FSU would take this guy tomorrow and Mike Oko. All right, first off, but like that being said, I think that even if they had lost this game, that doesn't make Mike Oko a fraud or a bad coach. That's kind of the crazy thing is that their story, yeah, it's ahead of them in the postseason, the SEC championship game, all that stuff. But we do feel like they've done enough to tell the story is rewritten for A&M to actually be able to win this game within the context of that is so freaking crazy. Where you just look like you'd never seen the sport of football for half, and you could make adjustments that somehow, to your point, it's like they came back almost too quickly. It was like, okay, how did you do this?
Yeah, I think previous eras of A&M football lose this game, and it's, hey, this is why they're a fraud. And there are a lot of people that are still going to look at that first half and say A&M's a fraud. I totally get it. They are still a team that's extremely difficult to beat for 60 minutes. Largest deficit since Notre Dame, obviously, when they fell behind by 10 in that game. And the schedule breaks that they've gotten have been tremendous in conference play. They're getting the same schedule breaks in conference play that Indiana got last year. Obviously, the fact that A&M has the win at South Bend changes how we talk about them, so don't get it twisted. But this is the byproduct of these expanded conferences. Everybody's going to be talking about that. The good news for A&M is that amidst all of this chaos that happened, whatever that was on Saturday, you're going to the playoff. You're going to the playoff at 10-0. Still have the Texas game to get into the SEC championship. Great stat from Chuck Dunlap from SEC Communications. And I'm so excited for this as someone in the content business and maybe other fan bases who are like on the outside looking in, just like entertainment also might be interested by this. No SEC championship bid will be clinched until the final weekend of the regular season. First time that's happened since the conference expanded. Buddy. The amount of times that I have done this job and the divisions are locked in, or first weekend of November, oh, we know that Georgia's going here, Bama's going from there, they won their key game. To have that decided on the final Saturday is incredible. And I'm so excited for that weekend because next week's slate is it's cake week. Cake week is officially back. We only have 4 power conference games, and none of them are particularly good. By the way, when any Big Ten fan claps back and says, Cupcake Week, see, this is how you do it. Count how many matchups the Big Ten has with teams with winning records next week. It's 1. Just saying.
Really quick, too, it's a nice little mix of the teams kind of in contention for that. Look at an Ole Miss that's historically never made this game. You look at an Alabama that's been in more than any. You look at a Georgia that's been this recent power. And you look at A&M, who is a more recent addition, but not the most recent addition. Oklahoma's still got a little bit of life. Texas is dead.
No life for SEC championship though.
Oh, okay, true. Yeah,
2
because
losses.
everybody else has like 1 loss. You're right. They have life for a playoff spot, but not for the SEC championship game. So I say that to say the depth of the conference is kind of showing in that way. So yeah, it's not been like desperation expansion, and I think that A&M has finally hit their stride. 12, 13 years in here, just as the helicopter was taking off with these new rivals from their old conference coming in.
Yeah, A&M would get into its first conference championship game of the 21st century if it can beat Texas. And Georgia, the SEC slate is finished, so they'll only have 1 loss. Georgia would still need Bama to lose to Auburn to get into the SEC championship. And then Ole Miss, if I'm doing this correctly, would need both A&M. They would need both A&M and Alabama to lose their regular season finales to get into the SEC championship. I believe I have that correct. And that's kind of just how this breaks down.
You know what? I hate to say the haters are right here, but I do kind of want that 9th conference game just so I can see more of these matchups. Because there are so many teams. Where I'm just like, I like. And again, this could just be the SEC championship game. It'll figure itself out. It's like I'd love to see Bama A&M. So I guess maybe the haters are right again. I don't know.
SEC Championship is going to be a really good matchup, though, kind of regardless of how this plays out. And there were times last year where we were kind of questioning it, and were we really excited to see how this was going to play out with how much chaos? Are these teams actually going to be really good? It feels like we're going to be in for a very, very fun matchup in Atlanta in a few weeks. Okay, one of those teams that is still alive for the SEC Championship, Ole Miss. It would have been so ironic if Florida had held on to this one. There were Florida fans who showed up in Kiffin gear. That's not a common thing in
There were
college
Florida fans
football.
who showed up at Knox Kiffin's game, the high school game the other day.
It might mean too much, Will.
They're a little thirsty out there.
Shout out to the Rivals reporter that's asking Knox Kiffin about his dad's future. Cool, real cool.
We're
anyway,
getting some really esoteric editorial questions at this point in the search. It's like, could you ever see in your heart the way that Ole Miss could be a blue blood? Anyway.
Yeah, seriously. Not what we should be going for in this day and age, in my opinion. But Ole Miss chanted, the fans chanted for Kiffin to stay. And yet, as all this is happening, Kiffin's in a dogfight in a revenge game against Florida that would have totally muddied the waters for Ole Miss's playoff picture if they had not won this game. And I'm sure as they go into the fourth quarter, Lane's having flashbacks. Go into the fourth quarter trailing, and they probably should have been leading. Kewan Lacey had this long touchdown run at the end of the third quarter, and I'm thinking, Ole Miss is going to be leading going into the fourth quarter, and then because he got stopped at the 1 yard line, they had kind of struggled in goal to go situations at that point. Man, Ole Miss is really going to be trailing going into the fourth quarter of this one. And they were struggling to pick up short yardage again. Last year, they kept doing the J.J. Pegues play, and it wasn't working. It was like the first time all year that it wasn't working, and they just didn't have any other plan. And because Jackson Dart was a little bit banged up in this one as well last year, they just didn't have anything else they could turn to with all the different backfield issues that they had. And this year, again, you're like, wait a minute. What are they doing? Are they overthinking some of these fourth and goal situations with some of the passing plays that they're drawing up? And
is Lane Kiffin a J.J. Pegues merchant? Some people are asking. It's like Jimbo and Jameis. What could he do at the goal line? Well, his lad is Chungus.
Yeah. Is J.J. Pegues a Chungus? He's a hoss.
Oh, he's a Chungus now. Come on. That's a Chungus. That's a big boy.
Okay. Fair. I might need to rethink my definitions of those two things. But yeah, I mean, Lane could say all that he wants. He was having flashbacks in those moments, and there's no way he wasn't thinking about the perception that would follow him the next 2 weeks if he had lost this game to this Florida team that had just been waxed at Kentucky and looked lifeless. But why was this time different? Why was Ole Miss actually able to close the door, win this game by double digits? It was not really a game that felt like it was a 10-point game, but Kewan Lacey was the difference. 100%. I know Lane frustratingly got away from him in 2 of those goal-to-go spots with incompletions at the goal line, but dude still finished with 31 carries for 224 yards, 3 touchdowns in this one. And you needed him because Chambliss kind of had a shaky night with some of the pressure that he was taking, some of the sacks he was taking against Florida. It felt like he was confusing him. Lacey right now, with the way that he was able to finish off the drives that he was allowed to finish off at least, he's got 19 rushing touchdowns through 11 games. Well, he's already got the Ole Miss record. He already broke Quinshon Judkins' single-season record. 11 SEC players have hit 20 rushing touchdowns in a season. Okay, here they are. Derrick Henry had 28, Najee Harris at 26, Trey Mason 23, Tebow also 23, Dylan Sampson last year had 22, Leonard Fournette also 22, Johnny Manziel 21, Trent Richardson 21, Jalen Milroe last year had 20, Alex Collins had 20, and a certain fellow by the name of Cameron Newton had 20. He's getting to 20. The question is, how high up that list is Kewan Lacey going to finish? Because he's getting at least one more game. He's getting at least 2 more games as long as he can stay healthy. Is Kewan Lacey potentially going to be the third all time on that list behind just Derrick Henry and Najee Harris?
We're gonna have some freaky records with the expanded playoff. This is another
for sure.
That's a good point there because it's the classic the most explosive thing I ever did for SDS. Funny enough, was a piece. I'm sure we talked about this about Nick Fitzgerald, where I was like, well, yardage wise, he's one of the greatest rushing quarterbacks in SEC history. People are like, he's no Tebow, but just usage is a big deal, right? And so this is a guy that. Again, no one's saying he's better than Tim Tebow, right? As whatever. But when you get more games and when you get the usage that he does, and that's the thing about Lane Kiffin, again, this whole system has been so plug and play. So Lacey is a special player, no doubt. But that just kind of goes to show that, like, hey, do we lose Judkins? Okay, we're going to plug this guy in. Soup Connor, another guy was like, okay, what are we going to do without this guy? And it really just kind of doesn't matter. And so he's the best version of that I think we've seen, but that's not to say he's the best version we'll ever see of that within Lane's offense. And furthermore, it feels like those records are kind of here for the taking overall with an expanded playoff.
Definitely. And Ole Miss could end up just playing 13 games if they lose a first round playoff game, but still, they're right now set up really well to be able to host a home playoff game and at least be favored and then have potentially a 14th game this year. So all of a sudden we're kind of looking at these records going, man, that might be very much on the table for him. But yeah, he was incredible. Lane said after, like, that guy's the MVP of this game. Credit Florida for showing a pulse, because that would have been a bad team to show up without a pulse against, and they could have turned this into a lopsided game. And once again, Florida just can't make the plays in the fourth quarter. And ultimately the Lagway sidearm pick, I thought, was kind of the key play in this one, where you just can't make that in that spot where it looked like it was going to be a potential go-ahead drive late. And Florida just, for whatever reason, can't get out of its own way in key moments down the stretch. And they've played actually a lot more competitively than what that record is going to suggest. That doesn't really mean a whole lot. But I mean, even with a decimated group of receivers, some of the throws Lagway was making, you were reminded why this guy is special. The post that he had to start on that play was just ridiculous. Dropped it in a bucket. And look, if Kiffin had lost this, man, the conversations would have been all over the place. He would have been, even with a bye week, there would have been nonstop Kiffin talk. And he hasn't had to use I shouldn't say he hasn't had to use. Nobody has used the distracted excuse against Kiffin all season. And that's a sign that this is his best coaching job that he's had so far, not just for the Chambliss angle of this and because of the percentage of returning production last in the SEC, but for all those other reasons. That's all Lane could have hoped for this year. And if you had lost this game, everybody would have brought that up. And the irony would have been that Florida would have maybe pushed Kiffin further away from the playoff, and then maybe they can recruit him a little earlier, or how that's going to work. Ole Miss, as it's able to clinch 3 consecutive 10-win seasons, still has this question, though. Still has this question, Will. And I was texting with somebody this morning. I need to say this. I think Lane stays. I'm still on record saying I think Lane stays. I do think that he's only got one place that he would go, and it's Florida. I don't think he'd go to LSU. I don't think he'd go to Auburn. I do think that there are people at Florida that feel like they are still going to be able to get him, and they are going to go all in, and they are going to wait, and they'll wait as long as they can because they understand the importance of this hire. And if Lane Kiffin is Florida's next head coach, I still believe he'll be at Ole Miss next year, but if he does leave for Florida, the figures that we are going to hear with this contract will make even the most diehard college football fans go, oh my God, that is insane. And I know Kiffin has said repeatedly, I've never made a decision for money. I don't believe he'd make this decision for money, but I do believe the money would be insane with the number that I heard this morning. That just makes you go, wow, Florida's all in. Florida's all in for Lane. They are still all in for Lane. Lane's going to go to the beat of his own drum, though, and this could still go in a variety of different ways.
I mean, this is so kind of electric, entertaining to see in real time, because it really does feel like, we saw how close it was. It came down to a slideshow with Auburn, like we talked about with his daughter, and the creepy. I believe it was Ryan McGee that did that piece, kind of like looking at the Auburn decision. And this does just feel like a wild moment in time, because Lane Kiffin, like we've talked about, is such a different dude. Like we talked about, a guy who grew up in football, who already reached the heights at a very young age and fell from the mountain. And you really can't use these truisms that you can with every other coach, where it's about, oh, you got to have financial security, you got to have championship, you got to have whatever. It's almost like he's, like you said, it's like he's over it. It's like he would rather be somewhere where he's loved. And I think that could be Florida. That's the thing about it. But I think you hit on something that's really key here, which is that, like, I think this is pretty much becoming a pass-fail thing, for Florida, where they're all in, and if they don't get Lane Kiffin, if he stays in Oxford.
Huge risk if they wait and if they don't get him, because the other guys they could be going after, extensions, other jobs, they're like, it feels like Florida is willing to say, we are taking this gamble. And I think Florida thinks it's Kiffin or bust. I truly do.
Yeah, I mean, everything they're doing has said that. Everything their fans are doing has said that. And again, like just being within the mind of Lane Kiffin, it's so funny. Like you hit on the point of like distraction. It's like he's such an apex troll that he does 50 things a year that most coaches would be like, this guy's gone crazy. He's distracted. He's at hot yoga, and it's like in spite of everything, he's doing it this way. I mean, every little quote, I mean, goodness, like Jimmy Sexton and Lane Kiffin could negotiate a Middle East peace deal at this point because the way that he's just able to throw a little phrase in here, do the Ross Dellinger story, say, "Oh, you guys weren't here for Citadel last week," like I don't know, and like so, it's like he's just a master at this part of it, and it's so crazy to see how it's kind of gone south on him a couple of different times where he's been playing with fire and he's been playing with the fun stuff. And like, remember last year, the basketball hoop they brought famously to Gainesville, it got repossessed by the Florida Gators.
Yeah.
And so like, this really does feel like the apex Lane Kiffin season. And again, I really have no comment on it because I'm not an insider. But I just hope he finds happiness and peace because the SEC is truly, or I hope he continues to find happiness and peace. I hope he retains it because the SEC is just an objectively better place with Lane Kiffin being himself. And he's been his truest self this year.
Definitely. All right, let's breeze through these last two games here because don't know that there are a whole lot of people that were locked into these last two, but Mississippi State and Mizzou. Well, Ahmad Hardy rules. He does. That's all I got. 300 rushing yards in this
Boom.
one, man.
Easy. That guy is a beast. That guy rules. Sometimes you look at the SEC rushing records and it is as easy as who's the Mizzou guy. They keep getting a better one.
Drink kept him out there to get to 300 too, which was great. At the end, just 2.5 minutes left, and it wasn't particularly hard. It wasn't like he's having him in harm's way down the stretch, but Mizzou had already had the game in hand. And once he breaks off this big run, it was like, I can't remember how long the run was. It was like a 15-yard run or whatever it was to clinch it. And he's just ecstatic. You see the smile on Hardy's face and the whole sideline's fired up for him. He's like looking at the scoreboard to make sure that he got to 300 and everything. I kind of love that they were doing this, like they're not going to the playoff. You're not risking him like getting hurt just ahead of the NFL draft or something like that because he's, only a sophomore. He's not draft eligible. Like, do right by the kid because he clearly wanted to set the mark. If you're seeing him out there like huffing and puffing and he's like, coach, and coach like, no, stay out there. You're going to get to 300. We're having a different conversation. That clearly wasn't the case. Ahmad Hardy's motor is insane. His ability to run through contact is second to none in the sport. He ends up having the 6th best rushing game in SEC history. Best in the playoff era by any SEC running back. Trey Mason had the last 300 rushing yard game in 2013, which Mizzou fans know all too well because it happened against them.
So underrated. I'm looking at him with that touchdowns list and this one too, where it's like, he obviously had some stuff going like after his college career, but Trey Lassol was the man.
Yeah, he really was. Very underrated over the course because it gets kind of just muddied into like the Gus Malzahn Auburn running backs, and he really kind of was a cut above the rest of them. But yeah, it makes perfect sense why this happened the way that it did for Hardy. A lot of the things that we talked about in the preview pod with Mississippi State having the second worst defense in the SEC in terms of missed tackles. Cole had the post game interview with Hardy, and it made even more sense to learn that this was the first time that Ahmad Hardy had taken the Mizzou offensive line out for dinner. And then Buddy rips off 300 yards. Look, somebody in Como, nicest steakhouse in Como, get Ahmad Hardy that NIL deal, have the offensive line out every single game. Do like what Kentucky has been doing with their quarterbacks, basically like the last 4 years. Levis started that tradition. I'm blanking on the name of the steakhouse. Really good place in Lexington that I've been to. Not the steakhouse part, but the restaurant part of it. I'm blanking on what the name was. Get that deal for Ahmad Hardy. Take care of his guys. Would he run for 300 yards every single week? Probably not, but maybe.
Maybe. We got to find. There's only one way to find out. And I'd say, look around the SEC, man. How many teams are struggling to run the ball? Like, really, there's a ton. Even on a game-by-game basis. And so it's really, it really can't be overstated what Drink has been able to do in building an identity with this team and saying, this is what we do. Again, even Alabama can run the ball right now. And there are so many good teams that are hindered by, we really can't just lock it in and push you. And that's what they've been one of the best in the SEC over this run. I'd say top 2 or 3, as far as just imposing will. And this is how we're going to do it.
He has multiple 250-yard, 3-touchdown games this year. No other FBS player has one. It's just insane. He's got now 1,346 rushing yards with 3 games left if you include the bowl game. One of those at Oklahoma. That's going to be really, really tough next week, obviously, with what they've been able to do against the run. The other is at Arkansas. Not as tough, so maybe that kind of evens out. And then a bowl game, and he's not draft eligible, so you assume that he's a go for 3 more games this year if he's healthy. If he averages 118 rushing yards in those 3 games, which is very realistic with how much he can go off, the volume that he can, that he warrants with his running style, all that stuff. If he does that, it's a 1,700 yard season. Here are your list of SEC running backs who have hit 1,700 rushing yards in a season. Derrick Henry, Leonard Fournette, Herschel Walker, Darren McFadden, Trey Mason, Bo Jackson, Travion Williams. Travion Williams, 2018, doesn't get enough love. That's some elite company, man. And I think it's pretty realistic. I don't think he'd even have to go off down the stretch. He could actually be kind of quiet down the stretch and hit that and join that club.
Not to, get too theoretical here, but this is kind of a lukewarm take. Do you think that he is a Bo Prabula injury away from a Heisman invite?
No, he's not. He's not, and I love Ahmad Hardy. But that was taken off the table probably with the Alabama performance. It's the margin for error is just so slim for a running back. It just is. I don't even know if Jeremiah Love is going to get a Heisman invite. I think he will very much be part of those conversations. And if he doesn't get a Heisman invite, there will be a lot of people saying, how did Jeremiah Love not get a Heisman invite? But I still come back to Jonathan Taylor didn't get a Heisman invite. Saquon Barkley didn't get a Heisman invite. Okay. A lot of great.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just really difficult. So I wouldn't probably go there, but is he going to be a finalist for the Doak Walker? Yeah. How could he not be? It's going to be a really interesting case if he finishes the season healthy, if, especially pre-bowl game, if he's able to get to 1,600 rushing yards, he and Jeremiah Love's probably going to win it, but still, man, just a heck of a year. And if no, I don't even want to do it. We'll save that for another time if the conversation comes. Never mind. I'll say
theoretical win for the SEC. Wow.
I'm gonna save that one for you off air. I think we've already talked about it, but that's not right to put that out in the atmosphere. On a totally unrelated note, LSU will. The interim bowl. Frank Wilson, interim bowl champion. Needs something better than Gatorade water that he got dumped.
Well, he got the heaviest trophy in sports, so.
True. It's an obscure trophy. I appreciate leaning into the boot, but my God, is that thing so tall. It is.
I hate this rivalry so much. This game has frustrated me more. Because it's always after the Bama game when LSU loses and they have a bye week before Bama and Arkansas comes in there and punches them in the mouth. I thought that's what was going to happen today. But
nope.
LSU had other plans.
LSU is able to win this game, is able to hold on. Going to a bowl game, over under 39 scholarship players that LSU will have in its bowl game.
Wait, give me that stat again.
39 scholarship players for LSU in the bowl game, over under.
I mean, it'll be over. It's got to be. Or Frank Wilson's going to start fighting people. He's going to be like, look, I recruited you into this school. I'll take you out of it if you opt out of this bowl game.
Okay, over under 39 fans in Death Valley on Saturday.
Oh, man.
I
think now it's almost a meme to show how much they hate Brad Kelly. It's maybe they'll just show up now and be like, see, we always had this in us.
Man, it looks like a different stadium when it's empty. It's so weird. My guy Ty Richardson was there on Saturday. He made the trip down from Arkansas. For whatever reason, he wanted to watch more torture for Arkansas because, I don't know, maybe he's into that type of thing. Great for Michael Van Buren. Great for a defense that hadn't experienced a win in 5 weeks that deserved one. By the way, not surprised at all the way this played out with Nussmeier in the week. Not surprising. Okay. Late in the week injury, gets called a setback with the ab strain. LSU makes it look like he got hurt. Allow him to maybe save face in front of NFL front offices a little bit. The best move for all parties. We know what happened here, right?
Now LSU wants to admit that he's hurt. Awesome. Great job. That's it's like you get dumped and you're like, maybe I was wrong in some of these fights. Maybe this was on me a little bit.
Do you think Bobby Petrino's ever said, guys, I was wrong?
No. And bless him for being the way that he is, man. The way that he just came at the official mid-game. He probably knows he's not getting the job. He is such a king who just being like, you know what? Bleep the refs, too.
Yeah, the halftime interview with Alyssa Lang was great. I don't have confirmation of this, and I admittedly, there were other, especially once A&M was down 30-3, I was a little bit more locked in with the sound to other games. Bobby Petrino had to have broken his sunglasses, no? They weren't on his head during halftime. he was mad at the officials. Are we connecting dots and assuming those sunglasses got smashed at some point?
He, out of anger, ate them like a power up, and it gave him plus 10 rage, and he grew 10% and started screaming louder.
Can you blame him? Can you blame him? I don't know, man. You feel like everybody's against you at this point to lose 8 straight. And he wasn't responsible for all those, but my God, I mean, he's been there for all of them, so he probably feels at least like he's partially responsible for it. And
Aaron Torres tweet really quick. Arkansas has now lost 8 straight games. Losses include 6-point loss at Ole Miss, 1-point loss at Memphis, 3-point loss at Tennessee, 3-point loss to A&M, 3-point loss to Miss State, and 1-point loss at LSU. And again, we probably outplayed LSU, just to be honest. But somehow we're here again.
it's torture. That's what torture is. It's just, here the State Farm commercial with the fishing hook with the dollar. Here, you're gonna try harder than that. We run out of words to describe that. I just love that Frank Wilson emptied the clip with trick plays. That just totally understood the assignment. You're an interim coach. Have as many guys as possible touch the football on one given play, and just see if it's cool. I love that.
Yeah, like it, and I loved like watching the Zapruder film that I could find online of these trick plays, trying to watch them back. It's so beautiful. I mean, this game again, Frank Wilson, Bobby Petrino, Michael Van Buren, like technically a backup. Like you talked about the matchups of one team, the 2 backups. It was Mizzou and LSU, and it's like LSU got better with their backup because just again, you need legs in this offense because they can't run the football. It's like duh. Like I hate to be that guy, but it's like hey. Every offense could benefit from Jaden Daniels. I understand that. But the real night and day is that he could always move the chains with his legs. And Nussmeier just physically couldn't do that for a number of reasons.
I need PFF to get on this, but I do think Michael Van Buren leads the nation in runs that end with him going out of bounds for a quarterback, at least in terms of percentage per drop back. He's got to be up there every single time.
If you're going to burn the red shirt, you might as well also not get injured. It's like we don't need to take 2 red shirt years. So you know what? I get that, man. He's trying to do enough to win and not enough to ruin his life.
Yeah. By the way, the Taylor Green 2-point conversion run, just for local quarterback in every way. He's still in the air. Incredible.
I mean, again, this was just beautiful. I mean, you had like the weird missed field goal. You had a Mansour Delane pick. The most hilarious.
Mansour Delane is so good, man. Dude, Mansour Delane is a stud.
It's like that's the most hilarious, beautiful irony is that LSU's defense is back. DBU is back. Maybe a worst case scenario in history is taking weeks out for the foreseeable future. But that being said, like Mansour Delane's a dog. Like these Portal guys, like a lot of them are good players. LSU just couldn't figure out that their quarterback was hurt for 10 weeks.
Well, I've got bad news.
What?
I know I can't hurt you.
What now, Connor? Go ahead.
I don't think we're getting another interim bowl in the SEC for a long time. Never say never.
Well, yeah, I mean they're wiping the slate after this year. It feels like a 40% turnover rate after this year.
And we're not getting another. We're not going to get another one this year, unless like just the unthinkable happens or something like that. Which Kalen DeBoer's not stepping down at Alabama. I saw Big Cat throw out the idea of like, could Kalen DeBoer like step away from Bama? It's just not for him. No, no. So barring that, which that's not happening. This brief moment in time, it's Haley's Comet. The interim bowl, it was rare. It deserved to be appreciated and on your multi-view. Which welcome back multi-view on Saturday. Chef's kiss to have the Disney YouTube TV deal done. Thank goodness gracious, man. I couldn't do another Sling TV thing. I couldn't. I'm sorry. Just need my multi-view.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Hold on, let me make sure that this is actually Blake Baker before I say this. Yes. Yes, this is Blake Baker. Okay. Also, really quick after this game, Blake Baker tweeted, "Proud of the Bayou Bandits for holding the SEC's best rushing QB to 15 points." Which is so funny to me. But yeah, I wanted to get that in there because it's like, we figured it out, the mobile quarterback thing. But yeah, it's great to be able to watch college football, and it's great to be able to watch this game, which again, I hate it when teams take themselves too seriously. Neither team took themselves seriously at all in this game.
Yes. Cheers to that. All right, let's close with the little playoff top 12 prediction. After not a ton of shakeup within the top 10 necessarily, but did have Alabama go down, of course, on Saturday. But I think it'll look like this: Utah at 12, BYU at 11, Notre Dame at 10, Alabama at 9. Could be wrong on that one. Will Bama be ahead of Notre Dame? They should be, in my opinion, even though Notre Dame waxed Pat Narduzzi, who suddenly can't beat a top 10 team anymore. And
Well,
then
he said this game doesn't matter, so he told the truth.
he's right, man. Hey, ACC picture hasn't changed. Never question Pat Narduzzi.
Jordan Conference, cowards.
Yeah,
He's just straight up said, we don't care.
Yeah. They should care because it's going to impact them, their playoff possibilities. But anyway, Oklahoma at 8, Oregon at 7, Ole Miss at 6, Texas Tech at 5, Georgia 4. I think Georgia's going to stay at 4 because A&M still being undefeated is probably going to matter more to the selection committee. So they'll be at 3, and then Indiana at 2, Ohio State at 1. Anything egregious there?
No, I mean, people are going to get mad about Texas Tech or whatever. I think that, at this point, I think we've seen a pretty clear separation. And I said this from the time this was announced.
Why, though?
I am just not interested in 12-team playoff. Like, I'm the worst guy because I should have a hot take here, but it's like, hey, if your team is out, they had a lot of opportunities to be in. And if your team, you think they're 4 or 5, who cares? Like, honestly.
Texas Tech killed BYU. They killed Utah as well. Like, I think that has to matter. And the one game that they lost was with Baron Morton hurt. So I will be more lenient to Texas Tech, despite I realize Ole Miss fans are frustrated, but they have the more depth on the resume than what Ole Miss has at this point. Obviously, winning at Oklahoma, now that looks even better for Ole Miss, and that's the good news. But yeah, Oklahoma is suddenly, I think, going to be the top ranked 2-loss team because of that win at Bama, which I think the selection committee will greatly respect, considering they had Bama as the top ranked 1-loss team before.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you win in Bryant-Denny Stadium, especially against this coach, who again, that was his secret sauce. That was his main thing. So yeah, Oklahoma, what a 180 for them. But yeah, just proud of those lads. And the SEC, once again, frauds. Look at this. They got like half of the top 12.
Doug Maurice, mid. I'm gonna get Doug back on if an SEC team wins a national championship and if they have like 2 teams in the semifinal. I just want to get Doug back on to defend his mid take, which he tweets, I think, during every single SEC game.
I love it because I co-tweeted him with the SDS account. I didn't realize it was a bit that I had walked into that he was just going to like stand on it. I was like, okay, man, my bad.
Doug. I'm sure he enjoyed UCLA Ohio State on Saturday night. All right. Leave us a 5-star review, please. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Saturday Down South on YouTube. You can watch every single episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the SDS Pod, at Set Down South, at CJ O'Gara, at Chris Hart. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.